Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Babbling Irons video. Myself and Sloth today. Lucas Paqueta is the topic of conversation, how important he is, how he compares to some other top-performing Premier League midfielders this season, and also how he compares statistically from last season, which is also interesting, considering most people were saying he was quite a slow starter, couldn't really figure out his best position last season. Obviously, this season as well, he's been playing mainly on that left-hand side, which we don't still believe is his best position, but he's still influencing the game. And, the game against Brentford on Monday night just kind of illustrated the importance. I think our record without Paqueta, we didn't win a game. He comes back and we instantly win, and just such a big difference to the way we play. And not just individually at the individual talent he has, but just everyone in the team just raises the level. He's one of those types of players. Pyatt was the same when he was on it. He raised the level with others, and Paqueta's a similar kind of player to that in that regard. So, Lucas Paqueta, talk to me about the importance of him to West Ham, and did you maybe underestimate just how important he was to West Ham, considering the recent run we had without him, and now obviously returns and back to winning ways?
Look, it'd be remiss of me to say that we didn't miss him massively. I think the parity or disparity between when he was in the side and when he was out of it was a shock to everyone. Like, I don't think anyone would have expected us to go on such a bad run, but he is just absolutely fantastic as a footballer. He's everything you want in terms of someone who plays for your team. They're a bit of a bastard, he gets stuck in and he's not scared to throw himself about, and at both ends of the scale, he's more than happy to, shoulder barge someone and pick up a card, or he's more than happy to roll around clutching his face. And look, as much as we all don't like that element of the game, when we know that gets fouls these days, and everyone does it, it's very hard not to get behind when one of your own starts to actually do that for a change. We see the complete opposite in terms of Antonio, where he just doesn't ever get a foul given for him. And when you have someone like Paqueta, who is so good on the ball, but is able to relieve the pressure, he's able to carry it, he's able to, as I mentioned, pick up the fouls and win you a free kick that just slows everything down. He's willing to make a little tackle where he clips someone's heels and stops a breakaway. It's such a difference, and we saw that against Brentford.
I mean, yeah, to come back in after such a long time out, not really match fit, thrown straight into the starting 11 and just produced a really good performance. We've got his heat map here as well to kind of show that, he wasn't doing as much defensively tracking back. And again, that's probably to do with match fitness. But, you see that position he operates on the left-hand side, and you think how influential he was in that game, just in this section of the pitch. It's crazy. It's why I still believe his best position will be like that deep 8 position, where he can really influence from both defensive and offensive point of views. Because when we look at the statistics, his defensive contribution is much higher than probably a lot of other creative Premier League midfielders in the Premier League. And I think that's what kind of sets him apart. Not sets him apart, but makes him different and makes him unique. And it's probably why Pep wants him so bad, because he's just such a unique player in the fact that, he's not just going to be a creative outlet. He's also got that industrious defensive side. And, firstly, I wanted to compare him to last season, how he's done this season. Obviously, the minutes are a lot lower. We're only halfway through. He picked up an injury. But I think it's quite interesting to see. Obviously, the blue is last season, and the kind of pinky color is this season. Still pretty similar. I think the forward pass percentage just dropped slightly, but when you look at the actual key passes, progressive passes, they've actually increased this year. And he's become a lot. And I think that's been quite apparent this year. Even that small margin of improvement has made a big difference. I mean, last season he was in the 83rd percentile for key passes. This season, the 98th percentile, which is comparing it to other players in this position in the top 5 leagues. So again, progressive passes, 90th percentile this season compared to 70th last season. So he's not only a progressive player. You then look at the kind of defensive actions, 56th percentile for a midfielder. is very good considering the type of midfielder he is. We could have compared that and put like Declan Rice in there, and Declan Rice's percentage would be clearly higher because he's a defensive midfielder. But for someone of Paqueta to be in as high as that is very, 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 very unique. And, we can show a little bit more of a better example here when we compare him to, say, Martin Odegaard. Look at his defensive actions this season, 3.7%, because he's not that type of player. He obviously plays a bit further forward than Paqueta and doesn't have as much defensive responsibility, but he still doesn't get stuck in as much. Yes, Paqueta, his forward pass percentage is slightly lower. Again, it's probably to do with the team he's playing in and the position he picks up on that left-hand side slightly deeper. But other than that, Paqueta's kind of outperforming him a lot of the time. And defensively, he just offers you a lot more assurance and a lot more stability when he is kind of contributing defensively. So if you could label Paqueta as a type of player, what would you label him as? Because when we brought him in, people probably thought Brazilian 10, here to score goals and assists. He hasn't actually got an overwhelming amount of goals and assists, but no one really alludes to that, which is quite important because a lot of people just go off goals and assists now. Ward-Prowse being the prime example of that. So why does Paqueta get away with it when, he should maybe people maybe should be looking at goals and assists for that type of player?
I think when you look at his overall game, he's got that perfect blend of combative centre mid, but also creative flair. And it is very rare in the modern game. You asked me to compare it to someone, and I kind of, you're struggling to pick out examples. The thing that I think really sets him apart is that tenacity that I mentioned. It's the willingness to break things up and get stuck in, but also get involved in physical duels. He's not the biggest player. He's not the most muscular player. However, he uses his body strength incredibly well, and he's able to roll players. And we see it time and time again. He gets players drawn in close to him, and he just does a quick turn, and he'll release the play. There aren't many players in the Premier League at the moment who I think are doing that kind of thing. The one that I might get a bit of pelters for, but I think he's been sensational this season. I think he deserves recognition is Ross Barkley at Luton. He's got that sort of physical side to his game, but he's got the creativity as well. And I don't think Barkley's anywhere near the player that Paqueta is, but I think he's showing this season that he could potentially do that sort of role. When we look at the contrast between when Paqueta is in the side and when he's not, who else is willing to do that? It's for someone who's playing the left wing role, and we all know really that he's got this sort of free agent role where he can come in and out of the midfield. He can go wide if he wants to and link up with Emerson. But when you're looking at someone who, as we both said, he, in terms of fitting into your FIFA profile or your kind of match board, he would go into that attacking midfield area generally. But he's just so versatile and athletic that he covers a number of positions, and we've seen the impact that having a player like that, a willing runner and a willing tackler, is making with his reintroduction.
Yeah, I think as well, it's as you mentioned, he does play on that left hand side, but he's intelligent enough to find the spaces between midfield and defenders very well, whether that's inside, whether that's outside, linking up with Emerson, switching the play, playing balls over the top for Bowen. He's really got it all. And I think what we lack, and I think why his contribution is goes so noticed when he's not around, is because of those progressive pass stats. We don't really have any other midfielder that will try and play those types of passes. Alvarez has done it, I think, once while at West Ham, maybe twice, once in the Europa League. And Ward-Prowse and Souček won't do that. So then you're left with someone else to do it because there wasn't anyone else. It was Fornals, Ben Rama, or Cornet playing out on the left-hand side when he was absent. So we didn't really have that. So his progressive passing and trying to make things happen, it's going to be frustrating at times. He's going to mess things up. But without that, we are so flat. And I think that's the biggest difference and biggest noticeable difference to the team when he is and he isn't playing. And, again, we can compare him to another type of player, James Maddison, obviously a creative player. But when you look at the kind of creative statistics, Paqueta's pretty much there with him, other than forward pass percentage. Key passes is actually slightly higher. Progressive passes also higher than Maddison. Forward passes higher. Progressive carries, obviously Maddison's more of a ball carrier than Paqueta in those kind of midfield positions. But then you look at, again, defensive actions. Maddison's 3.5 percentile. Paqueta's in 56th percentile. It kind of illustrates just how important he is in both aspects. And I guess that leads me on to our final question. Is it now an issue that we've become over reliant on a player like Lucas Paqueta? Because we had this same situation maybe a couple of years ago when people were saying kind of too reliant on Declan Rice right now to do something or make something happen from that midfield. Have we sort of fallen into the same trap with Lucas Paqueta at the moment?
I think we definitely have. I think, look, people have been very critical of Kudus and Bowen in their recent weeks, but I think you have to look at the overall aspect of the team itself. And we spoke about one of the benefits that Aguerd had was that his passing range is so strong for a centre back. Yet, he's been very, very poor in recent games. And bringing Mavropanos in, who I think had a huge impact against Brentford, it just kind of showed up how much we rely on someone who's willing to find those passes. We've been calling all summer long for another centre mid to come in, someone like a Fofana. And if we look towards the summer, then potentially we could look at someone like Kone in the Bundesliga. And those big physical players who have that passing range, that Paqueta does, and have that eye for a forward pass, we do look incredibly lackluster or kind of free of ideas when someone like Paqueta's away, because we're so reliant on pace carrying it out. We're so reliant on the likes of Bowen and Kudus getting behind a man or taking them on. And generally, we don't have the players capable of playing in the ball when they're making those runs. So it's incredibly frustrating. But look, I don't know how many times we have to say this for when we sell players. We need multiple players. If he does move to Man City, and if he does, you can't begrudge him that. It's a chance to play with the greatest football manager of all time in, quite frankly, a disgusting team if they were to sign him. But you would need multiple players to come in to replace him. It would be a case of looking at getting a combative centre mid, looking at getting a number 10 or someone who can play in that centre attacking mid, and a winger as well. Yeah. It's quite frankly baffling how much work he does. And you see it when you compare him to someone like Maddison, who maybe carries it more, but the willingness to get stuck in just isn't there.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think it's going to be similar if he does go. A, it's going to be a big fee, and B, we're going to have the summer to make it right. Again, we don't know what's happening with the betting allegations. It might put teams off, but we're going to get a big fee for him regardless. I reckon it'll be similar to what we tried to get for Declan Rice, around 80 to 100 million. So there will be room to build. Again, strengthen the team. Again, bringing in a midfielder that does the defensive work or combative work, bringing a midfielder that brings in the creative side, finally bringing in a left winger that's maybe an out-and-out winger that can do things that Paqueta won't do in that position. So there's definitely ways to balance it out. I hope we keep hold of him. I hope we build the team around him and Alvarez in the core of that midfield. I think that's definitely what we should try and do. And, it's a big ask because a lot of big clubs are going to be around for these types of players. But yeah, I think we just wanted to illustrate Paqueta is not your normal midfielder. And there's a reason why Pep wants him so much. And there's a reason why he's so important to this team. And there's also a reason why his absence was so noticed when he's been injured. Again, we're not going to get into the David Moyes stuff, but there was a lot of criticism around David Moyes recently with the run, rightly so. But he's missing Paqueta. Paqueta is a vital part of that construct in that team, and you shouldn't be over reliant on one player. But to be honest, West Ham are and have been for many years now, whether it's Paqueta, whether it's Arnautovic, whether it's Payet, whether it's any of these Declan Rice. We've been very over-reliant on individual players a lot of the time. So we need to start building a team. We need to start building a squad, because that's not what we have at the moment. And yeah, I hope we keep Paqueta. He's a very important player. We love him. And hopefully he continues to impress and push us up the league and hopefully through to the next stage of the Europa League. But yeah, let us know your thoughts on Paqueta in the comments. Do you think we've become a little bit too over-reliant on him as a player? And yeah, do you think we can keep hold of him this summer, with a lot of big clubs going to be circling around for him as well? Leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and Sloth, until next time.
Come on, you irons.